Good morning, fellow Photoshoppers. Today what we're going to do is we are going to create a composite image made up of 3 or more images. I have supplied you with some images that you can start with, but you're free to experiment with this one. What I want you to end up with is something that is similar to this, where I have brought together a waterfall, this tower, and some kind of sky. So I've given you the images to work with to do that. You can find some of your own if you wish, but I'm going to go through the process today of how I get to this point right here. First thing I'm going to do is open these 3 images up in Photoshop. So I'm going to go to Edit with Photoshop, and I have all 3 of my images open. There's 1, 2, and 3. This is going to become my base image, where I'm going to be applying other things into this. I'm going to start with the sky. And just as we did with the other one where we were working with sky, what I'm going to do is get my magic wand. I'm going to select this sky. Now in this case, you can see it didn't really select all of that sky because it has a gradation in the sky of color and value. So I need to shift click above and below and keep shift clicking until I get right down to that bottom edge and get as much of that sky as I possibly can. And I think that's pretty good. What I want to do then is I want to put my constellation in here. I don't need this entire image, so I'm just going to select a portion of it. Hit copy. I'm going to go back to my base image and I'm going to go up to Edit, Paste Special, Paste Into. That places my image into here. And you can see it's quite large, so I can move that around and find exactly where I want it to go. Like I said, you can find another sky if you wish. You do not have to use mine. Before I go much further, I'm going to do a save as. So I want to keep my original desert scene the way it is, so I'm going to change this to my tower. I'm going to call it my tower waterfall. And it goes back into the links folder where all of the images are for this particular project in Photoshop. Okay, next thing I need to do is I need to bring over that waterfall. And I don't really want to bring the entire thing. I just want to bring a portion of it. I just need the waterfall. I don't want the sky. I don't necessarily need the hills on either side of this because I'm supplying a hill. So I'm going to go get my lasso tool and just quickly grab the portion of this image that I really want, something maybe like that. Okay, so I'll copy that and I'll bring that back over here to my tower and paste that in. Obviously it comes in much larger. I'm going to need to do some scaling, and I also have lots of the previous or the other image in this that I don't want. So I'm going to scale this down and get it close to what might work on the front of this thing, as if this waterfall were pouring out of this tower out in the desert. So what I need to do now is I need to make some adjustments, because what I could do is I could come in with an eraser and I could come in here and I could start erasing and getting rid of, whoops, wrong eraser to use. That's just kind of a crazy size. Let's find something, excuse me, let me get adjusted here to some kind of a good size brush to work with. Come on, brushes, open up, soft round, there we go. And then I can adjust the size of that down. Now I could come in here and start erasing this thing, but the problem is if I do that, I could accidentally erase part of the image that I do not want to lose. And I'm not quite sure of where my edge is because I may want to keep a little bit of that dark edge. So no. Do not use your eraser because that is not the best method to do this. What you're going to do is you're going to take on layer number 1, you're going to create what's known as a layer mask. And that's this small icon right down here at the bottom of your layers palette. So with layer 2, which is my waterfall, in fact, I'm going to change the name of that so that I know what I'm talking about. I'm going to click on layer mask. It adds this other little tiny icon on the layers palette right there, which is key. Next is hit D on your keyboard, which is default colors. And that means it's black and white. Now mine were already that way, so I'm going to hit X. X allows me to switch my colors, and there's a reason for this. We'll get into it in a moment. But I want black in the foreground, white in the background. Next, I'm going to get a brush. And what I really want is I want a brush that has a soft edge to it. So I'm going to go to a soft round brush, and I don't want it to be too large. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start painting, and you can say, well, it's doing the exact same thing as the eraser. But it really isn't, because what it's doing is it's creating what's known as a layer mask. It's going to allow me to retain some of these pixels, and if I accidentally go over something I want to keep like that, I can hit X on my keyboard, and I can paint back the top layer. So D sets my colors to default. Black in the foreground, white in the background, and that's what I want it to be because it's creating a layer mask. So I can now come in here and I can remove, and I'm going to zoom in as tight as I can here. I'm going to remove the parts of this image that I don't want. And I don't want that green because there really is no green in this scene that I have at the moment. Reduce my brush down a little bit. It's a little bit large when I'm working zoomed in this much. And I'm going to keep a little tiny bit of that shadow on that edge just so it has a little bit more of a realistic look. And what I'll do is I'll just keep working my way down here until I get down to where I am not quite sure what I'm going to do here down here yet, but I will show you the technique because I want to keep a little bit of that, the mist. I'm going to jump over to here. This is a little bit more of a clean edge. So I'll keep that rock. And I'll just go around this thing, chopping that down. So I'm basically merging these two images together to an extent. I need to make sure I really do clean it up. Sometimes I'll turn off my other layers and I can see that, oh, there's a little bit of smudge there, a little bit of stuff left over that I probably want to get rid of. Now, in order to get something that's a softer edge and not necessarily a harsh edge, I'm going to actually take and enlarge my brush quite a bit because I'm going to use my brush much more softly by just barely touching the surface. And what it allows me to do then is to put down just a little bit of that mask, allowing some of the top layer to just blend in gently to the layer beneath. And I'll do that down here as well. I'll just gently put that in, and you can see that I'm just barely doing it. This is where working with the Wacom tablet really comes in handy because it becomes pressure sensitive. I can be very gentle with this. And if I don't like it, if I go, whoa, I didn't mean to do that, remember, hit X on your keyboard and you can gently bring back that part of the image that you did not mean to delete. And then I can hit X on my keyboard to go back, and I can make that disappear. Now, what I have is something that's not very realistic in that the light on the waterfall is a little bit too cool, whereas the light on the tower is super warm. So I could come into Photoshop and I could go to Command U once I have applied that transformation. Okay, and I go to the image itself, Command U, and I could shift the hue of this thing a little bit, and I could reduce that down. I could change that to a slightly different color, and I'm not really, well, I'm kind of getting to what I want, but nah, it looks kind of funny being purple. That may not be the best route to go. I actually don't mind it sort of being very different, but that's up to you. You may say, no, I really want to change that, and you could shift that over to something that's a little bit more in keeping with the rest of the image. But that is basically how you create a layer mask, and that mask stays right with that piece. I can move it around, and you can see as I move there's a little bit of extra there that I haven't cleaned up. So in order to do that, I need to go back to my brush, and I need to make sure that I'm always on the layer mask itself. The line around the layer mask should be the one that's active, and if it's not, what I'm going to end up doing is painting black onto my image. So if you accidentally start doing something and you end up painting black on your image and you're not sure why, it means that you were not on your layer mask. Okay, that covers then how to create this graphic And that is a simple start to how we composite images in Photoshop. Have fun with this one. Remember, you can find your own images and put together something else. That's fine with me. But I do want to make sure that when you're done with this, I can clearly see that you have brought 3 or more images together into one image. Remember, you need to start with a good base image. So that's really the key choice, is what image will I start with and what will I add to that to make it dramatic, unusual, and make it something that somebody will not forget.